State D.
Hey, good morning and roll tide, sports fans. Welcome to the Houndstooth podcast presented by our philosopher king of dad jokes, John Henry. That's right. We're mixing things up a little bit today. Our sage of the X's and O's, Jessica Brand. Resident AV genius, Boganora. And me, your Lane Kiffin bus pass validator, Bill Sylvie. How the heck are you today, guys?
Good morning, Bill.
What a fantastic morning it is. What a great day to be an Alabama Crimson Tide fan. We passed the test, guys. We absolutely we passed the test with flying colors. For those of you,
the test. I mean, it was like they stole the answer key for the first 5 drives, right?
Right. I just want to mention before we dive too deep in this, because we're gonna gush. We are absolutely gonna gush. If you notice a few changes around here, we are now the Houndstooth podcast, and we're using real names and everything. We're upgrading your experience. We're going to be altering just a few things. You'll see as it unfolds. I am excited about the changes that are coming, but I think you, our audience, will enjoy them too. And to start the day off on the right foot, last week we inaugurated our halftime trivia contest. Not much of a contest. You get a shout out at the beginning. But last week, JTP got our first trivia question right. And it was, it was like a first pitch in a baseball game, but JTP, thank you, just the same, showing his Alabama Crimson Tide chops. The question was, how did Paul Bear Bryant get his famous nickname? And, of course, the answer is he wrestled a bear at a county fair. So JTP got that right. Tip of the Houndstooth duffer to you, JTP. And we'll have another one this morning for you guys. So yesterday. Now, Jess and I had a little... Jess's feeling on it was that against a ranked opponent, it was the most complete game they had played all season. And given that context, I will agree with it. Initially, I felt like during the opening drive, and I'll explain why in a little bit. During the opening drive, I thought Alabama didn't look good. But in retrospect, they did for reasons that I will explain later. I saw no flaws with that Alabama squad yesterday. And I am as high as a kite on the Alabama Crimson Tide right now. I was not sure about this season. I'm going to make a bold prediction. Maybe I'm wrong, all right? Maybe this blows up in my face. But guys, we run the table this season. Based on what I saw yesterday, based on our handling of Lane Kiffin, based on our handling of scheme offense, hurry up, I absolutely think we run the table this season. There's no reason we can't. I haven't seen anything from our coming conference opponents that worries me in the least. All right, and I'm knocking on wood furiously while I'm saying that. But I'm going to stop running my mouth now. Bo, what do you got, man?
I agree with you, but I see one team, and that is Georgia, that might give us a hiccup. I'm not quite as high as you are. I want us running the table, but I honestly think that even with, heaven forbid, we have a loss to Georgia, that they can still make the playoffs and get revenge, which in some ways is that's very satisfying. Not as satisfying as 15-0, but it's still very satisfying. Yeah, yesterday's game was one of those. The first part of the game was just awesome and led up. In the second half a little bit, which is good for coach because it gives him some coaching moments, and he's got something to yell about, and the team got a outstanding victory out of it, and Lane Kiffin gets to go back to Oxford and I don't know, stock up on popcorn because it's all on sale, I guess.
Yeah, your popcorn futures are blowing up.
Yep.
John Henry, a steel driving man, so I'm told by Johnny Cash. What do you got this morning?
Well, I'll tell you what, this was a good game. And I just want to call out that last week, towards the end of the podcast, I said Alabama by 21. I gave the score
You
as
did.
52-31. I was 10 points high on the score, but considering the number of actual possessions each team got, I did pretty well. So 21-point victory. I'm calling it. I got it right. I was dead on. I win the bonus. But let me tell you what, Alabama's offensive line has continued to improve. They've gotten better every game. The first couple of games this year, they looked very so-so, and at times would do their best imitation of a block of Swiss cheese. That's getting better. There are a lot fewer busts. We're still letting too much pressure get in on passing, but I think we'll get better as we'll keep getting better on that. One thing that worries me is Jamison Williams has completely disappeared in this offense. I think he got one target yesterday. He got overthrown, and I don't remember seeing him again after that.
I think that was by design yesterday.
I absolutely feel it was by design.
That's very possible. I want to see this. I want to see this young man taking the top off of defenses. I think we have a little work to do to get him more involved in the offense. Might be nice to see him on some under routes too.
Let me balm your concerns. Let me soothe your concerns by just mentioning this. O.J. Howard, 2015. Nick didn't really unbottle OJ till the playoffs. Okay,
OJ's still open, by the way.
Yeah, OJ Howard is still open.
Breakfast all day, baby. Yeah.
That does help.
Okay, all right. So, my sparring partner Jess, what do you got?
All right, so there are a few things I noted. So there was obviously another target beyond the overthrow. He had that NFL touchdown. That was, he was down a little bit, and the ball was not.
That was great.
Yeah. But what I noticed is that Saban used a lot of Kiffin's game plan in this. We really saw an efficient rushing effect. It felt like a game, and you mentioned O.J. Howard from the mid 2010s. Honestly,
Yes, it absolutely did. Nick just. I feel like he dusted off the 2015. He even had a Derrick Henry out there, which we'll look at when we get to numbers in a minute. It was great. But I'm sorry. Please continue.
Yeah, the other thing I noticed, and I don't think this got a whole lot of press, Drew Sanders filling in for Christopher Allen. You're not going to replace Chris Allen. You're not. But he has looked very good. He's been decent in pass, been decent in run. I realize he's trying to improve in pass coverage. But seriously, though, look at what he's done at will. Look at what he's done at outside backer. He had a sack, and he has been able to be more athletic. He's been very exciting, and you realize what could have gone wrong when Allen was out, right? Because that was projected to be a big loss, and it still was. It still is. Mm-hmm. But he's done an admirable job to avoid a big drop-off. And that's just what makes it, I think, absolutely wonderful. You talk about next player up, and you talk about players that you can play. This guy was a 5-star like a few years ago. He's not as hyped as Anderson, but this guy was a top 10 recruit in a few classes ago. Absolutely incredible. And I think he's not done growing either. Because when you put this guy in coverage eventually, and if he gets the hang of that, there is so much versatility of what you can run with this team to make what they do even less predictable. Because I think that's what did Ole Miss in terms of the offense early on. we ran a lot of sets that are atypical to what most of the SEC, granted Kirby's an exception, but what most of the SEC runs on defense. And that's what makes it very unique and makes it very hard to tell what everyone is doing. And you add these guys who have multiple functions that can play up front, can play in the box, can play at edge, can play in coverage. It is ridiculous. It's a team of athletes. It's like this. It's like the Soviet hockey team from 1980, except they're probably not going to lose. So,
well, I certainly won't argue the points with you. In fact, speaking of points, let's take a look at the numbers yesterday. Bryce was 20 for 26, 241 yards, average 9.3, 2 TDs, and an int. Hey, nobody's perfect. Rushing was on fire yesterday. B-Rob, 36 carries, 171 yards, averaging 4.84. 4 touchdowns with a long of 21. Jace McClellan, 6 for 28, 4.7 for 10. Roydell Williams, 3 for 15, averaging 5, long of 6. Receiving, that receiving core. So Jamison Williams, 5 for 65, average 13, long of 26. Let me just clear my throat. Slade Bolden, 4 for 58, no drops, average 14.5, thank you very much, with a long of 29. Jaleel Billingsley, 4 for 47, average 11.8, long of 19. Mechie, 3 for 35, 11.7, long of 16. Trayshawn Holden, 1 for 21. Jace McClellan, 1 for 11. Latu, 1 for 3, but with a touchdown. And I did miss Mechie's touchdown. My apologies. JoJo Earl, not really there. 1 for 1. Let's see.
And a false start.
Yeah, right. And a false start. Now, normally I just gloss over defense, but I mean, again, the defense playlist is as long as my arm. We'd be here till lunchtime, but I do want to break it down. We had 2 sacks, 7 tackles for loss, 7 quarterback hurries yesterday. Our defense was tremendous. We a defensive team now. So I have no complaints about our defense yesterday. We were bringing the pressure. I don't think Corral felt comfortable outside the opening drive, which again, I'm going to get to when I talk about, my high tide, low tide elephant stomp. Kick returns was competent. Williams 1 for 22. Bolden 1 for 18, but of course they have to kick it for us to have a kicking return game.
My favorite stat of the day.
Yes. Oh, are we 4th and Kiffin now? Is that our new thing? 4th and Kiffin.
Well, he's not kicking, so 4th and Kiffin.
4th and Kiffin. Will Reichard, perfect, of course. Love it.
Can I make a point?
Go ahead.
Okay. It's 7 minutes and 35 seconds into the third quarter. Ole Miss tied Will Riker scoring.
I love it. Let's see. And we even let James Burnip go out there and have fun with a 37-yard punt. So, see, Lane, you punted because you didn't punt because you didn't want to. We didn't punt because we didn't need to. All right, so that's the tale of the tape, and I want to pause real quick because I'm just humiliated by this. It is TJP, not JTP. I don't know what the hell I was thinking. TJP got the trivia question right, so I apologize, TJ. My sincerest apologies.
Let's go, P.
All right. So, high tide, low tide, elephant stomp, and we're gonna kick it right over to Bo. What do you got? What are your high tide, low tide, and elephant stomp moments?
high tide was definitely the defense. Just the whole first half, and then the first drive of the second half. They let up a little bit after that, but it was so nice to see them adjust correctly. Um, and I mean, the first series that Ole Miss had the ball, that was, I mean, obviously scripted, right? Including, the change ups, the pass run balance there. Um, my low tide was definitely Bryce's INT. Just take the yards. Don't try to force that. And the elephant stomp was that fourth down stop on the first drive. At the what 4 yard line, 6 yard line, something like that.
Yes.
Yeah, that's what I got.
All right. Jessica.
All right, high tide. Ooh boy, so you got some options here, but I'm gonna go with Josh Jobe. He was targeted a total of once, didn't allow any receptions whatsoever. It's not talked about how good he was shutting down this game. Like people want to talk about the front seven, and yeah, I get that they were really great too, but he was shut down. Like he was like Sertan out there. Maybe not as mobile, maybe a little bit more risky. He got flagged a couple times. One time on special teams, but those were all, I believe, in the fourth quarter. Absolutely the most shutdown performance that I've seen, and I read a lot of media about this team. I've seen nowhere talk about what a tremendous job he did to ensure that happened. Like no receptions, which is true as well, but no targets until like the fourth. That's insane. Like they're just completely avoiding him because he's doing that good of a job. Low tide. I have to go with the snaps, and that goes from Neela and Nibbert, who had not really a good one on one of the extra point tries, but also what is up with Darian Dalcourt? Multiple times we had snaps that almost flew over Bryce Young's head. He's not the tallest guy. That is that really could have gone a lot more dangerous than it did. Honestly, like I don't know what's up with that. They need to find a right tackle so they can move Owens back to center because he is an interior lineman. And Owens admittedly looked okay today. I got to give him his due. But you can't have that at center. Not against when it starts to be serious time. The line is starting to gel, and I do worry a little bit about messing with that. It has been 4 games. It's been a month. That's my magic number. But you can't have like 5, 6 snaps that are nearly over your quarterback's head. I really hope they work on that this week. Have to. Elephant stomp. It was said best. The fourth down stop on the opening drive again. I mean, it's beautiful. We're going to go into a lot more detail about that later. That is my film selection this week. But I think that is such a fun play that exhibits discipline, complexity, and ultimately talent winning out. It is the embodiment of what makes Alabama, Alabama, and Ole Miss, Ole Miss.
Right on. John Henry.
All right. My high tide, Alabama's first drive. I thought after watching Ole Miss go down the field and grind it out and go for it on fourth down 3 times, we took it and we sort of ground it out, but it was we didn't have to go for it on fourth down. I mean we were I don't remember, there may have been a third down in there, but we moved the ball very well. And we accomplished one of the things that we really wanted to do was keep the ball away from the Ole Miss offense. So we weren't trying to have a big strike and score quickly. We wanted to grind it out a bit, take a little bit of time off the clock, give our defense a break, and we did that oh so well. My low tide, and Jessica, let me just say for your low tide, when you see the center start having problems like that, that means he is very, very concerned with what his blocking assignment is doing, and he's trying to get that ball out a little bit faster than normal so he can get to his assignment. I played a little center here and there, and it was all usually against one of the better nose guys that I would start having bad snaps. So he was concerned with his assignment, I think, and I agree. We need right tackle back at center. He's more steady. Um, my elephant stomp. I'm going to make it 3 for 3 so far. That our stop of Ole Miss on that first drive at the 6 yard line. That was a beautiful, beautiful play. And I must admit, guys, when that play happened, I scared my dog. because I jumped up and yelled yes so loudly that she went and hid in the kitchen for a little bit and was peeking around the corner to make sure everything was okay. So I'm
Oh.
sorry, Lucy. I apologize.
Well, I think I'm gonna just have to. I'm gonna have to go with the group on this one. They say foolish consistency is a hobgoblin of a small mind, but I'm not the philosopher here, folks. Absolutely, the elephant stomp was the stop. High tide was. It's such a tough call. I've been thinking about that. And I said, it'll come to me. It'll come to me. It'll gel, and I'll just have a moment. But I am gonna get a little. I'm gonna get a little deep here. I'm gonna get a little next level. High tide was Bryce dealing with the low tide. I said this to Jessica this past weekend, and this may have even been before the game when I was still fretting. But part of process thinking is recognizing that there are random externalities in a situation. But if you are committed to the process, they impact you little to none. So my high tide would have been Bryce, even when he took a snap in the face, which was his fault. He turned his head a couple of degrees to the right and had to take the snap off his own face mask. He never rattled. He never freaked out. He didn't, and start having to chase the ball down. The guy's just got ice water in his veins. So Bryce's performance was the high tide for me. Low tide, yeah, again, Dalcourt, buddy. Deep breath. Calm down. Everything's going to be cool. I think the pressure of the first serious under fire test rattled Dalcourt a little bit yesterday. So I kind of did my high tide, low tide, elephant stomp in a mixed up order there. But that's how I feel. I think. Dalcourt did a fine job blocking once the ball was out of his hand. Nobody came over the top of him and just put Bryce on his ass. Yeah, he got pressured a few times, but he thrived under that pressure. Although I will say, God gave you two legs, Bryce. Use them every now and again, would you?
That's not who he is, and that's not who
I know,
he's ever going to be. But my gosh, if you got 5 to 8 yards in front of you, just take the free yards.
I know. It's we get spoiled by, even going back to Jake Coker. One of my favorite Jake Coker clips is in the 2015 ATM game. He drops his shoulder on a I can't remember who it was from Texas A&M. But he drops his shoulder and lowers his helmet on a guy. Jake looked like a frigging running back and just plowed into the guy. And we get a little spoiled. Even Tua was known to sprint for 20 or 30 yards every now and again.
I don't want Bryce lowering his shoulder. And
I don't want Bryce lowering his shoulder either. No, I understand what you're saying. But a running, we got spoiled for 4 years with running quarterbacks, and it was nice to see. And now, Bryce is sitting back there. But hey, Mac wasn't a running quarterback either.
True.
So I can't take him to task too much. But I would really like to see it, when I'm sitting there looking at the TV and I'm like, I could run through that gap and not get tackled, man. Come on. No. Bryce's coolness with a center who was not quite so cool, I think was inspiring to see. And again, it's process thinking.
Yep.
It's saying, look, there's an X factor, there's a variable, but if I'm doing everything I can, if I'm doing everything right, those variables don't matter. They're not going to impact things for me and for the rest of the play. You know, I bitch constantly about ref ball, not just against Alabama, but against lots of teams that get shaft handle and all. Yes, it sucks when you have to play against the refs, and the refs have been pretty egregious this year. I think we're all in agreement. But if you're process thinking, it matters less and less. It's like, oh, you know, he called a obvious not pass interference on us. And yeah, that happened to us yesterday, and I'm sure we're all aware. You know, I didn't know you could do a crossbody block on a simple hook play when the football was like halfway to Gadsden and draw a defensive pass interference. I didn't know you could do that. I didn't know that was a thing you were allowed to do.
Maybe that's a new stat we need to track. ONPIs, obviously not pass interference.
I like that. But here's the thing. That didn't make or break our game. That didn't, you know, Nick did all the appropriate yelling at the referees for that, but it didn't break our game because Alabama is processed.
Yeah, and I'm amazed. I mean, we got to remember, Bryce is a sophomore. Okay, this is his 5th start, and you know he looks like he's been starting for 3 years, and he's still making those, you know, freshman mistakes. He'll learn to take those yards and not try to force it. Hopefully, he has very little that he needs to clean up in that area. And at this point in his career, it's just amazing.
Yeah, it really is.
Allow me to make a very, very strange and slightly obscure comparison here.
Sure.
His presence reminds me a lot of Jay Barker, who never got rattled and always stayed calm. But he looks like Jay Barker as a senior, where he would just kind of casually squirt out of the pocket and then flip the ball downfield to somebody. Except he doesn't flip the ball; he throws it on a frozen rope. And when he decides that ball needs to come out, it comes out, and it's out fast. He does not have a big wind up, and he's got a quick trigger, and it comes out really, really fast. It's impressive.
It really is. It's I will absolutely take your word on the Jay Barker comparisons.
Whippersnapper.
Yeah, well. Hey, I'm the guy who put Jeff Rutledge in the opening image crawl, so don't whippersnapper me too much.
Can we talk about B-Rob for a minute?
We can talk about
B-Rob is a man. Holy crap. That was what I've been waiting to see from him. And I didn't realize it was his first 100-yard game ever. Yeah. And he almost made it 200.
Okay, quick vote, straw poll. You folks in the audience can weigh in on this too. But around the table, is B-Rob the new El Tractorcito? I think he could be.
He certainly was yesterday.
Yeah, he did have that one-cut power back move. I think they're going to use him in very specific situations. Like, I think if you want to run on first down, then he'd be your guy. I don't think he's necessarily the guy that they'll go to when it comes to run-pass option stuff. I think that's going to have to be Sanders who needs to step up. I'm curious to see what they have in word out because Jason McCullough's out for God knows how long, because then CBS decided not to report on that whatsoever.
Oh, I know.
Yeah. Yeah, the difference I see between B-Rob and Henry is Henry seemed to just get better and better and better the more carries he got. B-Rob is a consistent 4, 5, 6 yard a carry guy. Almost, you know, if he can not get hit in the backfield, he's going to get you 4 or 5 yards, almost guaranteed. And Henry got blowed up in the backfield a lot, but as the game wore on, he got better, and then the defense just got tired of tackling him because he's a freaking freak of nature. So I do see a difference there. But I agree with Jess here. You need to run on first down, give it to B-Rob.
And yeah, and B Rob's not going to break any long ones like he did. I mean, he's breaking a couple of long ones a game, but B Rob is not. He's not that back. B Rob is a hammer. The defense is a nail. And I hereby motion that B Rob be nicknamed the Hammer.
I like it.
Yeah,
hammer.
Okay. Aye. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Uh,
All right. So that said, it's halftime, guys, and it's time for trivia, time for halftime trivia. Today's question, of course, comes courtesy of our aforementioned philosopher king, John Henry. So today's halftime trivia question is, who was the first All-American at Alabama? The first All-American for the Alabama Crimson Tide football team. Who was that? So you let us know. You can put your comment in the live comments. If
no
it
Googling.
No Googling. If it goes unanswered, if you catch this later in the week and you're like, oh, I know the answer, and you want to put it down in the comments of the video, we do check those, and you'll still get the shout out. But if we get here next week and nobody's answered it, well, you'll just have to try again. So
Back
that
to
is
the refund line.
exactly the refund line. So there's your halftime trivia. Who was the first All-American to play football at Alabama? So get your thinking caps on, folks. Get your thinking caps, and we'll put you in the opening credits. And I promise I won't screw up your username next week. You have my you have my word as me. That's it. That's all I got to put my word on.
All right. So while we're still at halftime, before we move on,
Okay.
Can I ask a question?
Would you like to ask another question?
I would like to ask two questions, please. What was the dumbest thing that Lane Kiffin did yesterday?
His absolute arrogance. Okay, all right. That's a bit broad, but I'm okay. Those of you who know me well know, and this may shock those of you who don't know me well, I'm kind of a nerd. I'm a little bit of a nerd. I know. Jess, calm down. Just relax. I promise. I know it's a shocking revelation. I play a lot of Dungeons and Dragons. I'm going somewhere with this. I promise. In D&D, we have things that they're pre-written stories. I'm not going to get into the specifics of how a D&D game works, but they're pre-written stories that you can have your players play, so you don't have to write one. It's called a module, and they're usually filled with numbered encounters. This room has a dragon in it. This room has a princess you can rescue in it. This room is actually a pit trap that if you fall into it, you'll hurt yourself, and so on. Lane Kiffin's opening drive was his module. He ran that opening drive exactly by the numbers. There were no surprises in anything he did. He didn't go fourth and lane because he felt like, oh, this is an interesting opportunity. I'm going to pull this one out. He had a pre-programmed adventure for his offense from kickoff all the way down to the Alabama 6, where they got stopped.
Yeah, that's when the defense cast Fireball.
If that's when the defense cast... No, that's when we cast Wall of Stone.
Yeah, there you go.
Here's the thing, Lane. Buddy. As a DM, the one thing you've got to be aware of is no adventure survives contact with the players. You have to flex. Lane didn't flex. He never flexed in that entire drive. It was clear that weeks before, the night before, the day before, Lane said, in the opening drive, if we take the ball, if we don't win the toss and Nick defers, I'm going to do exactly these plays with no alteration in that plan. I was grumbling. I thought he was making our defense look bad, but when we got that stop, and after the game, okay, I'm not Jessica, okay, I'm not super big football brain, but later in the evening, looking at it and thinking about it, I'm like, oh, you poor dumb SOB, you ran an adventure module and you didn't change anything. That is the essence of Lane Kiffin's dumb move for me yesterday. For me,
I'm curious what Jess thinks.
Well, I think there were a few things that were unfortunately very dumb. Like the quote to start the game was, I think that was honestly very immature pre-Alabama Tennessee era. Lane Kiffin. Like, are we going to see Lincoln, the Tennessee kicker, walk out on the field and Terrence Cody block it again?
yeah, no kidding.
I mean, and the other thing too was almost listening to your quarterback. Trust your own judgment as a coach. They almost went for it, and even though I support going for more on fourth, they almost went for 4th and 2 from their own 9 because Matt Corral said, "Oh, we want to go for it." And thankfully he changed his mind, but they legitimately considered doing that. That's too far deep in your own territory, even with what the metrics say. You're not Presbyterian. Don't do this. And the reason he changed his mind, Danielson mentioned it very well, and I think astutely on the broadcast, that he wanted his guys to have something positive to look forward to, because if they didn't get that, that could have really spiraled out of control. And probably an ensuing Alabama score on the media next drive. But, man, there was just so much haughtiness in this, even when he was down big. And it was just like, did he really learn from Saban, given how this game went? It was just so weird. Like, I mean, we mentioned the O.J. Howard thing. It felt like, in so many ways, that this was a game that could have taken place just 8 years ago instead of when it actually happened.
It really was like a step back in time, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
John
that
Henry. Again, we need to know what John Henry thinks.
Yeah.
So, Jess, you mentioned the Presbyterian College, and that takes me back, because does anyone know what the Presbyterian College mascot is?
I don't know. No idea.
They're like the
Okay.
Deacons or something.
I know
They
they're
are
the
the Blue Hose.
Yeah.
Craig James, shout out.
Blue what?
The Blue Hose.
The Blue O's. Okay.
Hose.
Really?
Yes, the Blue Hose.
I'm not going to touch that with
Okay.
a 10-foot cattle prod.
Dad joke.
Yeah. All right. So it dovetails nicely, though, because I want to hear Jess's breakdown on the X's and O's. So we got the top 25 ticker rolling, but Jess's no kisses, no hugs. Let's break it down. Let's hear it.
Yeah, if you get the reference, it's kind of fun. So, as I mentioned, we're going back to the play. It's 8:51 to go in the first quarter. 4th and 1 for Ole Miss. Ely runs for no yards and is stuffed at the Alabama 6. Now, when you look at this play, and eventually I will be able to show it to you, but I want you to imagine it. I mean, it sticks out. It's a prominent play. First thing I noticed about this play is the top of the screen. Rebels are on a 3x1 trip set. Trips, like triplets, 3. Alabama was in cover 1. That was exactly the right call. But Alabama runs a little bit different cover 1 than most teams. Most coaches will just call it cover 1 robber. Most coaches, there's one deep safety, well, as deep as it can be, but it's deep relative to the depth of the field in this case. And one player in the hook area. That's the rat. And that player is eyeing the quarterback and robbing any routes over the middle. QB scrambles and the The rat mirrors the quarterback horizontally in the zone until the quarterback crosses the line of scrimmage, and only once the quarterbacks reach the line of scrimmage will the rat play run responsibility. Saban is different. Kirby does this too because, of course, Kirby copied it. But Saban runs something called a funnel concept when he sees one back, like this was. Now, a funnel cover one means that two players will either running back. The near side player takes the running back if he breaks to one side. The opposite player becomes the rat. So if your running back goes to the right, then your right frontal player is going to be taking the running back, and the left player becomes the rat. And why would you do this? Well, it actually serves a couple purposes because you have two players, naturally. So it ensures that the nearest linebacker is going to have responsibility for the running back. Well, that's Tim Smith. He's the one who made the tackle. He's commonly faster than their linebacker counterpart. Now, the far side linebacker, for example, he's trying to get across and back to the back. That's inviting disaster. Now, the other reason you do it, it increases the likelihood that the rat's dropping from the side the quarterback isn't looking at post-snap. You know, we talk about like blindside tackles. This is basically an extended version of that as the play happens. A lot of offenses like to use half-field reads, like Ole Miss does, but the running back is the third option, like Ole Miss does sometimes. Mm-hmm. But when you have the rat coming from the backside, that increases the likelihood that a quarterback doesn't see him while reading a front side on a dig or other crossing route, just in case they're going to throw it. Now, the funnel on this play in particular is Battle. A little bit of shout-out to Christian Harris, too. Now, Battle is number 9 when you look on the replay. I know you know the numbers, but, it can be a little hard to look at because, everyone's bunched up given the proximity of the goal line.
Right.
When I look at, and I love that we have stripes on the helmets, like a center stripe. I've always loved that about the Raiders. I've always loved that about Alabama or anyone else who does. Because when you look at the center of a player's stripe helmet, it follows like basically, or at least it should for most faces, in the middle of most people's eyes. So Jordan Battle number 9 is lined up right over the nose tackle and the end. So who is his opponent when he's trying to get through? That's right tackle number 78, Jeremy James. He has no idea which way he's going to go. He looks left, he looks right. He is indecisive. Video is going to come eventually, unfortunately. My technology isn't there yet. I will say that. But when James is there, he has no idea where it's going. And that's ultimately improper blocking. And so what he tries to do is, because he realizes he's a step behind, he tries to overcorrect. And that leads to an easy path to easily for Jordan Battle. Now, the other thing you want to note is because he's so misdirected, and he's at this point even more than a step behind because he doesn't have the athletic ability to come up with that, Christian Harris easily got there as well. And when that also opened up Tim Smith. He got the one-on-one tackle and allowed him to break through, and that made him to make the tackle. And Ole Miss was a step slow. You had smart plays, you had fundamentals and execution. And, we have to end this with the fourth word and fourth concept because it was fourth down, stops. It is brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Everyone did their job exceptionally well. It was a perfectly called play, too, by the way, because it is designed to stop a running back like that in a 3-by-1 set. That is unbelievably well done all around. I was shocked. I recognized it was a funnel one cover one concept immediately when I saw the replay when CBS showed it at the end of the game. But when I looked at what they do, I looked at my Saban playbook notes. This was the exact call that if you knew what was coming, this is what you would call from our playbook. Exceptionally well done and exceptionally well executed. I was so thrilled to see this. We talk about how big of a moment it was that they got stopped, right? But the fact that it was called this situationally well is something that I think nobody's going to report on. It's so special to see that. And I couldn't be happier.
So we're not going to fire Gilding?
No. He platinum this week.
Okay.
Yes, Pete has been upgraded. He can now hang 2 posters and 1 photograph on his office walls. See, previously we just had, it was like bank boxes and framed pictures on his table in his office only. But we're now we're giving him a chair and a desk with drawers, and he can hang 2 posters and 1 photo on his office walls. So
he has more space in the office too because Slade Bolden gets to move out.
Yes, exactly. but anyway, yeah, I was happy with Slade, but Jessica is always bringing some awesome X's and O's, and what she's alluding to, graphics. That's part of the upgrade, guys. The new look for the Houndstooth podcast that's going to be coming, and let me tell you what, you guys are going to love it because Jess is going to have on-screen whiteboard graphics. It's going to be pro. It's basically going to be a professional gig. ESPN's going to be like, all right, we give up. It's you guys now for Sportscast, but you know, it's getting there, and I can't wait to see. I know in my mind's eye, like I can picture what Jess is telling us, but it's going to be so much better when we can show the world, and I can't wait to see her breakout stuff with the actual video on the screen. So we're
maybe a little preview to that. We'll clip that segment just there, and Jess can send me some images, and we'll make a Houndstooth bite out of it.
Oh, that's awesome.
I love it.
So yeah, that's there's your no kisses, no hugs from Jess. John, Bo, you guys wanna take a look at the conference for us?
Yeah, we're doing the SEC conference call right now. I'm gonna let John take the West and give us his thoughts on that.
All right. Well, we know Alabama took care of business over Ole Miss in the Jiffy Pop Bowl. We saw Auburn go to Red Stick. Bo Nix did some things, and Auburn beat LSU 24-19. Nix, he was 23 for 44 for 255 and a touchdown. And believe it or not, he was Auburn's biggest rusher too. He had 12 carries for 74 yards. He had a couple of boneheaded plays that were sort of nullified by Jordan. They brought Jordan Hare Luck to Red Stick somehow. We need to figure out how they do that, but we don't need the luck. But I swear a couple times as he escaped the pocket, I heard him yelling YOLO. If you go back and listen to the tape really closely, I think you can hear it over the noise. Let's see, Max Johnson. He was 26 for 46 for 325. He had a TD and a pick. He was pretty good early, but Auburn's defense picked it up second half, and
I love how they try really, really hard not to say booty.
Yeah, that
was a running joke the whole game.
I got a couple of giggles in there. LSU, they had 25 yards rushing. So this was the battle of the middle of the pack to me. I don't see either one of these guys challenging for the West this year. We're looking 3, 4, 5 here for these guys, I think. Let's see. Who else do we have? Well, we know Ole Miss, how they did. We've got we have Texas A&M and Mississippi State. That turned out to be a pretty good game. Mississippi State won 26-22. Mississippi State had 400 and how many yards rushing? Yeah, 408 yards rushing, 3 touchdowns from Will Rogers. Texas A&M did not. They were not. They need a quarterback very, very, very badly.
Yes, they do.
Yes, they do. So, is Mississippi State number 2 in the? Well, are they number 2? I can't tell you who's number 2 in the West right now.
I still think Ole Miss is going to finish second.
You're probably right. LSU. Probably 3 right now. That's
maybe Arkansas. Maybe I don't know what to think. I really don't.
I thought Arkansas was better than yesterday.
So, so
They
Arkansas dug themselves a hole to play out of at the very beginning of the game, and they just did not. They just weren't able to ever recover. They put themselves in a hole with penalties. Very early, they got down early, and honestly, Georgia's offense outside of the first two touchdowns really didn't do a lot. Georgia is still trying to find the answer on offense there. Their defense is legit good. Okay. Nobody can tell me that Georgia's defense is not legit. But their offense, and then of course it's kind of hard to draw conclusions based on yesterday's game because their starting quarterback wasn't even in the game. My son was here and we watched the game together, and he's Bennett. Evidently, they call him the mailman. And he did quite well for himself, I thought. But yeah, that was kind of the expected outcome as far as the Georgia winning. The score looks a lot better than it actually was, because 21 points in the first quarter for Georgia, and then field goal, late game touchdown field goal, right? And 7 of those 21 points came off of a blocked punt. So, that's kind of what I think. At some point, Georgia's going to have to find the answer on offense, but it wasn't last week or yesterday. Other games in the East, Tennessee tried to make themselves look like a football team and actually show up for once. They beat Missouri 62-24. Hooker had 225 yards passing, and Evans had a 150-yard rushing for Tennessee. We had South Carolina. Finally got a win over Troy. Good for them, 23-14. Did anybody here happen to watch the Florida-Kentucky game? Because I did. Well, I watched probably the fourth quarter or whatever. And I think that's so. Dan Mullen has got this Cousin Eddie game in him every year, and that was it. Florida beat Kentucky in every statistic except for the one that counts, and that's scoreboard. It was entertaining to see Kentucky pull that out, and then of course they rushed the field, which by my count at this point that's their third one of those. So that's a $250,000 fine for rushing the field. Because I know they had their $100,000 was last year when they beat Mississippi State, right? Maybe it was the year before. I don't know, but anyway, so that was fun there, and Vanderbilt and UConn fought it out for last place in college football, and Vanderbilt won on the last second field goal, 30-28. So good job, Vandy.
I will. Let me just say that I actually late last night I tried to go look up the score for that game, and I fell asleep trying to find it. I got to the score and I saw the names and I just fell asleep.
I can believe it. So
snooze fest. I'm sorry.
Well, I should point out that was former Alabama kicker Joseph Bulovas who kicked that winning field goal.
Roll Tide, Joe.
Good on you, Joe.
And I really hate it that we sent him there, but I'm glad he's having success. But he has to play for Vandy.
Yeah, let's put that in a whole bunch of quotation marks. Success.
That's a relative.
Yeah.
Made field goals. Okay, let's define that narrowly. Yeah. He kicks the ball through the uprights, and good for him.
So it's interesting. So Kentucky is second place in the East right now with that win over Florida. I found that entertaining for some reason. I don't know why.
I mean, that or Wake Forest being the last unbeaten in the ACC. Like, this has been a weird year.
Yeah. No, Clemson's not done losing.
Oh, no.
Oh
Clemson
no,
lose
they are
against one
not.
more.
No.
They should be unranked.
Yeah,
Oh, definitely.
Clemson. Don't think don't think you can come in off the front porch because you had a serious struggle win against Boston College. Just don't. Because no.
Oh, and yeah, Clemson's taking credit for Boston College's mistakes, and that forced the whole country to have to listen to Dabo talk about how tough his defense played, falling on a fumble that they didn't cause. Let me just
Yeah.
point that out.
Jeez, that just
Oh, Dabo was front and center in a bad way last night.
I mean, let alone the fact that 3 of the past 4 passes before that point had gone for first downs. Oh, yeah, your defense is very tough. That really exemplifies that.
Yeah, I mean, they drove right down the field on them and had plenty of time with the first down on the 11 with almost a minute to go, and just lose the snap and just laying on the ground. Clemson guy goes and lands on it, and that's how that game ended.
Unlike Stanford, though. I mean, Stanford, like, was dead to rights, and then they brought out gangbusters. Honestly, it was incredible. Should have been game over. I thought that was a pretty soft call on 4th down, with 0 time left on the clock, and then they ran that little cheap fade that never was supposed to work to the tight end, and you wound up getting that. What? I mean, I knew Pac-12 was going to do Pac-12 things, but number one, Stanford, and number 2, on low percentage plays, really? And, oh yeah, Thibodeau got ejected for targeting. Oregon probably isn't done on the trail path either. But then, of course, you talk about the proxy effect of that. Ohio State losing to them does not look nearly as understandable as it did at this time last week.
Yeah.
Yeesh.
Well, we can say the same thing about Florida. So
Yeah, that's
You
true.
know.
But at least we don't have a loss.
that's
One
true.
that, if,
that would
if
be
that
bad.
happens, yeah, then that is concerning.
And then Stanford was able to keep them out of the end zone in overtime.
If
Oregon's
Stanford won on
offense
defense, what?
Yeah, Oregon just did not look good on offense in the last part of that game, in the fourth quarter and in overtime. But Stanford had their number. They saw what was coming. They defended well. It was Stanford actually looked halfway decent. I don't understand that. I don't know if they switched jerseys with another team or what.
Yeah.
Considering how they started out the year, but yeah, Stanford looked the defense looked pretty good. The offense looked good when they needed to look good.
Well, of the top 25 games, and first of all, I want to mention, I just caught this, folks, and I apologize. There is a glitch in our crawl. The LSU Auburn score isn't showing, so if you're curious about that, that was LSU 19, Auburn 24. But those teams in the Pac-12 who are losing, I'm very sorry. I want you to continue to lose because I can't sit up till 3 a.m. until your damn games end. This West Coast football late night has got to go. So y'all don't get to be in the top 25. Keep playing your games. Keep having fun. I'm not saying you shouldn't play foot. I'm just saying if you guys are going to kick off at 11:30 Eastern and keep me up until 3:30 in the morning to make sure that something exciting doesn't happen, or if it does, that I catch it and can talk about it, then you need to not be in the top 25. I'm sorry. That just I'm just issuing my walking papers for you guys. So thank you, Hawaii, for possibly knocking Fresno State out of the top 25. Even though I love Fresno State's spirit in that in that big win they had a couple of weeks ago. But all kidding aside, my the big game for me yesterday outside of Alabama, it wasn't even SEC. Okay, it was it was Cincinnati beating the Domers.
Yes.
I was so happy. Let me tell you, one of the fans of the show, and he's a good friend of mine, Rusty Schaefer. He's a Cincy fan, and I have watched those guys with interest. And let me tell you, there is a lot of there's a lot of Cincy, Alabama connectivity, believe it or not, because of course, Cincy coach Butch Jones, Cincy coach Mark D'Antonio worked with Nick at the Spartans. So I personally found that to be very interesting. But it was great to see Cincy go in. And where do you put them this week? Where do you put Cincinnati this week? I mean, Oregon lost. They're going to be out. I'm not suggesting Cincy goes to the number 3 slot. That's not. But they did beat a ranked Notre Dame. What do you do with a resurgent team like Cincy?
Yeah,
I'm
a
team that has a legitimate
number 3,
a legitimate run or a legitimate shot at getting into the playoffs if they run the table. I mean, I think personally, this is really, outside of the Alabama game, the story of interest this week is what do you do with Cincy? I don't think they're punching above their weight anymore, guys. I think they're fighting like they should be fighting. And I want y'all's feedback, audience feedback on it. What do we do with Cincy? Jess, what do we do with Cincy?
I think right now you put them at 5. Alabama 1, Georgia 2, of course. Probably Penn State 3. Shout out of Indiana is kind of nice. Yeah. I think
Iowa handled Maryland pretty handily.
Yeah, I'm saying Iowa. I could see Iowa moving to 3, but I'm not as big on Iowa, so I'd have Iowa at 4, admittedly, but that's my bias. But Iowa at 4, and then Cincinnati at 5. I think you keep them on the cusp right now, right? Because as good as this win is, I look at what their schedule is, right? Because they're entering the conference play. They don't have much in terms of, I mean, not to take anything away from this win, but you're really going to say Miami of Ohio, Indiana, and I'm going to think Murray State are their wins right now besides the Irish. I think you need to see them do a little bit more. The game against SMU on the 20th, that's a long way off, November 20th. But this right now is not a team that I think has the resume of the other teams that are in the top 4. But they're certainly knocking out that door, and the opportunity is there. And that's why I think 5 just makes sense for right now. I let them know that it's possible, but not in.
I agree. I agree, and I think if I can add one more significant win, and this is going to sound strange for a couple of reasons. One, I am Orlando, Florida centric. No, I do not like the UCF Knights. I'm not a fan of the UCF Knights, and I'm less of a fan of the UCF Knights with old Gustavo being in the driver's seat over there. I think if Cincy beats UCF. That's pretty significant too. But
I think the UCF guys are having buyer's remorse.
Yeah.
Gus bus. The wheels fell off the Gus bus already, and then and yesterday the engine blew up. The emergency exit doors were barred closed. I mean, wow.
Yeah. I'm sorry. You know what? I'm such a knucklehead on something. They actually UCF is not down further in their schedule. UCF is actually just in a couple of weeks. The predictor rater has Cincy trouncing UCF, which I'm entirely okay with. So
Oklahoma struggled.
Let me
against
just say, if they
Kansas
have
State.
trouble with UCF, they shouldn't be in the top 5.
exactly,
Yeah, there you go.
exactly. I think they should. I think they should gut UCF like a fish, and I'm there for it. Not just because Rusty's a friend of mine, but UCF needs to be put in their place.
Is that in Orlando?
Yes, that is in Orlando. But the Knights need to be put in their place.
Probably get some cheap tickets at this point.
Yeah,
I'm just suggesting you and Rusty go.
That game's in Cincinnati. I thought I should mention that, unfortunately.
I'm sorry. What was that, Jess?
The game is in Cincinnati. Just
Oh,
man.
Well,
hey,
I could see.
road
I could
trip in
see.
Skyline Chili.
Yeah,
yeah.
And
weird,
some Pepto-Bismol
weird.
later.
Yeah, I can't deal with the Cincinnati chili. I'm sorry. Spaghetti noodles, and then they put what's up? Okay.
Yeah,
That works for mole, not for spaghetti.
yeah. So that was my toast of the town game yesterday. Was seeing Cincy just I was worried. Domer snapped back. I mean, Cincy went in at the half, fully in charge of that game, and the Domers pulled Florida on Cincy's Alabama. If you follow that analogy to its clunky conclusion, but I've got a little personal stake in that. So I think, Jess, I think you're right. I think you do sit them just outside the door and you watch what they do. And if they run the table and things get chaotic from number 2 on back, come December, I don't see that you can make a good case to keep Cincy out. And it's going to be a lot of fun. It's good. It would be good for the sport. It would be good for just the totality of college football to see a Cincy get in and not go, Alabama, Georgia, Clemson, and you pick your Power 5 fourth.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I think you put them at 5, especially after Oklahoma struggled with Kansas State yesterday.
Yeah.
That was not a good look for the Dirt Burglars.
They're struggling. They're winning, but everybody's wondering how, because they're struggling badly. That offense needs an injection of something. Yeah. But let me say, at this point, if we're talking about this scenario, we're talking Alabama, Georgia. Pick your Big Ten representative. There seems to be 2 or 3 at the top there, between Penn State, Iowa, Michigan, and Cincy. That's how this season so far is shaping up. Although I must say the committee may not be quite as high on Cincy, especially as they get further into their conference schedule. That might drop them down because other teams are going to have bigger wins. Mm. So if there are 2 undefeated, let me put this scenario out here. Oklahoma loses. Say Texas beats them, which is very possible, by the way. So now we have Alabama and Georgia going undefeated to the championship game. Then we have Iowa and either Penn State or Michigan going undefeated into the Big Ten championship. Cincinnati, okay, they're winning, but they're not playing the top competition. Are we looking at 2 Big Ten, 2 SEC?
We don't think Wake Forest is keeping this up, right? Because there's no way.
No. Wake will lose.
Wake will lose. I could see Oklahoma. I mean, if Texas wins, though, that just adds such a big wrench into all of this. 2 Big Ten really would not surprise me at all at this point. It's not going to be a Pac-12 team. Oregon, once again, has proven what the Pac-12 does at this point. Probably 2 SEC. I'm curious about SMU Cincinnati too, admittedly, because the Mustangs are undefeated. But that Penn State, Iowa, Penn State, Ohio State are massive, massive games for what becomes of the bracket this year. I think you could see any two of those because I don't think the ACC is sending anybody. I don't think the Pac-12 is sending anybody. Um, you could maybe see Oklahoma sneak in. Like Oklahoma probably needs to actually make a commanding statement because once again they let K State hang around. It was only a 6-point win, and this keeps happening. Eventually, they're going to drop one of these. This has been their problem all year with everyone they face. It would not surprise me to see Texas take it this week because if you're letting really, honestly, fringe teams hang around, then how are you going to handle a team that not necessarily is great, but I think we can all agree that Texas is good, right? So I think that's a drop game, as you mentioned, and that
Yeah.
leaves the door open for provided that the American isn't that great, and that's why the SMU I think is important to watch too, because if Cincinnati has two ranked decent wins, and I love that this was against Notre Dame, not just because it's the Irish, because it's Irish is important too, but we've seen Notre Dame teams get in with lesser schedules than this, but yeah, two Big Ten would not surprise me this year. I think that is the most probable path. Not to say it's obviously the only path, but because of the fact of how these teams meet, I think it gives it the best chance of happening. And if I had to guess, I would say Penn State and Ohio State. And again, I think Iowa's a bit of a mirage. But that is my guarantee for the season that Iowa will be at some point be exposed.
Interesting. So if there are two teams from the SEC, two teams from the Big Ten in the playoffs, does the Pac-12 and the rest of the group of five just all take their ball and go home?
They'll threaten it, but they won't do it. Like they're like, I want to go home, Sparky, and then they'll throw the frisbee again anyway.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, just alliance things.
All right.
So to kind of zoom back in focus wise, what are your stats of the week on the week, Jess?
Okay, so stats of the week. There are quite a few. This has been a very fun week, but it always is in college football. So, where do I start? Okay, so 6 top 15 teams lost Saturday. 34 ranked teams have lost through 5 weeks. Now, of those 6 losses, 3 came in the hands of fellow top teams: Alabama, Georgia, and Cincinnati, like we mentioned. However, that still makes the most top 15 losses on a single day since October 4th of 2014. 25 ranked losses through 4 weeks are the most in the history of the AP poll, which begins in 1936. 9 more ranked teams lost this past Saturday. Tied one, Alabama scored 30 points in at least 30 and 31 consecutive games. It ties the UCF record. They should break that next week. I'm not a believer in A&M. UCF, obviously, that was pretty recently against the Weekend American schedule. Ole Miss only had one offensive play that was longer than 20 yards after 8 such plays last year. And that makes Saban 24-0 against former assistants. Georgia's defense, interesting stats about this one. 1 touchdown through 5 games. Yes, they had a shutout of Arkansas, but it's their program's largest margin of victory against the top 10 team. It's their 3rd shutout all-time of a top 10 team, and their first since 1976. Now that one's interesting to me. That one also came exactly on October 2nd as well, and it was against the number 10 Alabama team. Actually gave the Bulldogs consecutive SEC shutouts for the first time since 1980. I hope I don't hear that one later today. But, they're going to hear, 1980 again. Oh, my God, it's been 41 years. Oh, my God.
Yeah.
I mean, really, the defense has only allowed just 16 points through 5 games. And, of course, Birmingham had a pick 6. Kentucky beat Florida at home for the first time since 1986 and is on a 7-game win streak for the first time since 1977. They had only 224 wins in the win and just 1 for 9 on 3rd down, but they had the block field goal for a touchdown. I'm not going to call it the other name. And Florida had 15 penalties for 115 yards. Kentucky's now 2-2 against its last 4 against the Gators after setting an SEC record 31 consecutive losses to the Gators. Mullen is the first Florida coach to lose twice to Kentucky since Doug Dickey, what a name, in the 70s.
Wow.
Okay, Stanford. Stanford, maybe we should have seen this coming if we go by history, which we shouldn't, but history says we should have. They're now 5-1 against top 3 teams since 2007's upset of USC. Obviously, we had the 31-24 overtime win against Oregon. But before against the 2007 USC game, they were 3-19-2 against top 3 teams from 36-06. It is the 5th time since 2001 that Stanford has knocked off a top 10 Oregon team. Maryland. Talia time, he threw 1 pick through 4 games and then 5 against Iowa. That was 3 picks in the span of 8 passes. So Iowa's forced at least 3 turnovers and a half 3 times this year. The rest of the Big Ten has done that once. It's actually the second consecutive week a team had 4 turnovers in a quarter, because Wisconsin did against Notre Dame last week. And Iowa's Spencer Petras, he was the first Iowa quarterback with multiple passing and rushing touchdowns in a game since 2002 when Brad Banks did it. Jim Harbaugh, he won for the first time as an underdog for the first time in Michigan. Wisconsin closed as a 1.5 favorite, and Michigan been 0-12 as a betting underdog since he took over in 2015. The only FBS school without an upset win in that time. Speaking of losing, Wisconsin, they're 1-3 for the first time since 1990. There was Barry Alvarez's first season of head coach. Now, after the Michigan loss, the Badgers have been outscored 65-20 in the fourth quarter. Wisconsin's first 4 drive total -7 yards, and the Badgers finished with an average of 1.3 yards per rush. And because it is college, that includes sacks. Max Johnson yesterday, he passed for 122 yards in a single drive. Went 6 for 6. Technically, it went 91 yards in terms of what they went, but that also includes a holding penalty and 22 yards on a botched snap. Therefore, you have 122. Finished 26 for 46 for 325 with a pick and a TD. But Auburn won in the first time in Death Valley since 1999. That's pretty crazy to me. Penn State, 5-0 this year. They're the first team to start 5-0 after starting the previous year 0-5 since 1989 when Tennessee did it. Goodbye to that record. They can't have nice things. So, Pitt scored 40 points in 5 consecutive games. That's the first time in Panthers history. And, of course, that's first 5 games this year. Kenny Pickett, he has 15 touchdown passes over the past 3 games. That actually breaks a Dan Marino record of 13 in 1981. 17 touchdown passes over the last 4 games is also a school record. On the other side of schools that we don't expect to do things, Oklahoma State in defense. 4 consecutive opponents to fewer than 100 yards and a half. They held Baylor to 99 this past week. They've actually allowed fewer than 50% of their third down conversions in 16 consecutive games and held 14 of 16 of their past Big 12 opponents below their scoring average. Oklahoma State has actually won 75 games when holding their opponent to under fewer than 20 points, and that is the second longest streak in college FBS level since 1980. Tennessee did something interesting this week besides scoring a whole lot, but it is related to scoring a whole lot. So they averaged 2 points per play in the first quarter against Missouri. 14 plays with 3 minutes 24 seconds of possession led 28-3. They're actually outscoring opponents 71-13 in the first quarter this year. They won 62-24, but did you know the last time they scored more than 42 in an SEC game was? Well, it was 2016 against Missouri when they had 63. They have the Tigers number. Speaking of a lot of points scored, Nevada won 41-31 over Boise State, and that's the most points allowed by the Broncos at home in a Mountain Western Conference game. The last time Boise State actually gave up 40 points in a home conference game was 2007, and when you guess it was against Nevada. But, of course, both were members of the WAC then. That loss ended Boise State's 20-game Mountain West regular season win streak. They did lose 2 conference championship games in that span, but that's not regular season. They're 2-3 for the first time since 2001, and it's Nevada's first win at Boise State since 1997. Georgia Southern scored 66 points their first 4 games, then 59 in a win against Arkansas State. So Eagles fouled Chad Lunsford after a 1-3 start. Now, of those 66 points over 4 games, 30 came against Gardner Webb. On Saturday, Eagles had 540 yards, 8.6 yards per play, including 503 rushing yards and 10.1 yards per carry. They were at 4.7 prior to the year. Michigan State. Michigan State about returns. You want to talk about good returns on your investment from your coach? How about your special teams? Spartans have 2 punt returns for touchdowns this year. Now, they played 7 games last year because the Big Ten was weird, and so was the whole country. And they only returned, not even scored, but returned 4 points all of last year. Gator Reed had 88 yards for a punt return PD. That's the 4th longest in Spartans history, and they have 6 total punts returned this year. 3 winless teams won their first game this season: Navy, Florida State, and Ohio. The 4 winless teams are Arizona, UConn, UMass, Middle Two, and UNLV. UConn and UMass meet this week. If you thought UConn Vandy was fun, and admittedly it wasn't in a perverse way, this will be even better. Now, the best for last year, I think, on this one. Did you know there was a 1-point safety this week? NAIA.
No way.
Really?
A
Wow.
1-point safety. I have been obsessed with tracking down 1-point safeties.
I can't believe I missed one. I've been looking. I mean, that's like finding a snipe in the wild or something.
Right?
I didn't know they
It's a
actually
unicorn.
existed.
I had to record this. So Lindsay College, Wilson College had an extra point blocked, picked up by a Cumberland player outside the end zone, and then he was tackled in the end zone. As of 2013, that had only happened 4 times, and of course, in college football, and of course, the most famous is that Fiesta Bowl play. But how about that? What a week! 18 for 18 championships. How do you like that?
Yeah.
Just amazing. So, next week, guys, ATM, Texas.
Mixing with Rawls. We got this.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm
this
not.
game's lost its shine recently.
I was sweating Fisher a little bit, but honestly, now I'm just like, you're a clown, dude. I mean, not a clown on the level of Lane Kiffin. By the way, I just we're gonna talk about next week's possibilities and so on and etc. But I just got to put this in. Okay. I want to apologize to anyone who read or heard me ever say the words, maybe Lane Kiffin. Lane, buddy, on the odds that you might ever hear this, grow up. Grow up. Tweeting out the faces and mugshots of students from the University of Alabama who've had run-ins with the law is pretty much one of the damned lowest things. To think I was sitting here 3-4 days ago saying, well, Lane has matured, he seems to, he's still a bit of a troll on social. No. Lane, stop it. Get help. Anyway, to continue on to the future, to Texas. I don't see any big hurdles in the ATM scheme. They're not offering anything dimensionally that I think we can't overcome. But I'm going to stop saying words that make me sound like I'm smart and leave it to Jess to actually talk about schemes and so on and etc. But no, I think we handily beat A&M at home. I'm going to say probably 38-21. I'm feeling like it's a 38-21 game. And 14 of those 21 are garbage scores.
I can't see Texas A&M scoring 21 on Alabama. I'm sorry. It's going to be 51-9.
Holy crap. I'm horrible at picking scores, but I'm just going to say that Bama wins handily. Texas A&M is a different team since their QB went out, and they're still struggling with that, obviously.
I don't see anything good about Calzada. I was worried about King a little bit. I thought he was a good passer, but He was not really all that tested, and now you have an offense that is routinely struggling to move the ball against Pirate. You're in trouble. I mean, this is not a good team right now. They were banking on all their other parts working out really well. Because let's be honest, it is a well-rounded team, and this team would have won a lot 10 years ago. But you need a quarterback now. I think this could be very, very ugly. I don't have an exact score, but it would not surprise me to see something in the 50s to like maybe 17 or 20 allowed, with one or two of those in garbage time. I don't think it's going to be 21, and I just don't see that. I just don't think their offense has enough explosion. Hosada has a slow release. He's a slow processor. This should be a sack fest. Like, honestly, we're going to have to consider changing our defensive line into the Vandals with how much they're going to get potatoes in the sacks.
Well, all right. So a little bit of dissent amongst the gang of four here as far as final scores. I just think Nick's gonna. Okay, I may be wrong on the Alabama score side. Okay, it could be 49. It could be as much as 56. But I don't know. I trust our defense. Okay, I trust our defense, but. You know, Ole Miss put up a couple of garbage time scores, and it's not. I'm not going Eric Evans on you guys when I say that ATM could put up could put up 21. I just think it's a hilarious fact of life that when you can put 21 points on a team, but it's meaningless garbage points. That just further shows our dominance, to be honest. So believe me, I am not damning with faint praise at all my own beloved Crimson Tide. I just think there could be 21 garbage time points simply because Nick has got like members of the marching band in. So that's just where I'm at, guys. I don't nobody in the audience or my fellow hosts here read anything into that. I just feel like Nick could. Oh, God forgive me for saying this. The man's going to show up at my door and shoot out my front door and shoot out my porch light, but he could take his foot off the gas defensively. Or maybe not Nick. Maybe the defense themselves could take their own feet off the gas defensively. So that's all I'm saying when I say a 21. It's gonna be 21 Lane Kiffin points, not 21 Florida Gators points. Does that make more sense? So, yeah, but I think it's an easy win for Bama regardless. Anybody coming away from last night's game thinking, well, Ole Miss, they put 21 up on Alabama. Yeah, no, go back and watch the game. They did not put 21 up on Alabama.
Watch the season again. 3 teams that I know of have not trailed all season. Not trailed in. So Georgia's at 49 snaps tied this season, only 22 since week 1. Alabama's at 39 tied snaps this season. They've never trailed. Michigan has had 68 snaps while tied this season. Michigan, right? But anyway, yeah. This team has not even had 40 snaps where they've been tied, and that's the worst they've been all season. They have never trailed. This is a good team. They're going to do well.
It really is. And again, I will reiterate what I said at the beginning of the show. Alabama runs the table this season. They run the table, and they get past whoever fate throws up at us in the playoffs. That's just where I'm at right now. Who can touch us? Look, this is a rhetorical question, but anybody out there, you got your stats or calculators up. Who can touch us? Who's got the numbers? Because I don't see them.
I mean, right now the closest is probably still Georgia, but there's an entire rest of the season to play before we see them possibly.
3rd and Kirby.
Yes.
All right.
Right. So, and I just want to go on record to saying that 3rd and Gelding is way better than third and Kirby.
Yeah.
And the thing is too, who knows about JT Daniels' health, right? Because with due respect to Arkansas, I think they got exposed a little bit. But if you had to start Bennett necessarily against Florida, who didn't look great, and Florida really should have won that game by all accounts, you might have an interesting case. They might be mortal if Daniels is not 100%. Relatively, no one's going to be 100% by the time they would meet hypothetically. But that concerns me in a way that Alabama doesn't have that concern. Because that's a huge drop-off, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, Bennett was limited. They only made him throw 11 passes. He historically has had a wind that is so slow. And remember, they got a pick off of that last year. Like, they're familiar with this guy because they played him in T-Town last year. But he has so many exploitive weaknesses. Yeah, he has a bit of a cannon, but, like, if he takes forever to get there, our front seven swarms this year. It's like a pack of angry bees, and we stole their honey. Like, I don't know. Like, that concerns me, and no one wants to talk about that. Like, yeah, Georgia looked great. Give them all the credit in the world for that. But is that really sustainable if you have to put Bennett out there against really another elite team? Thankfully, their schedule really doesn't make that too much of an issue, but he might come up eventually. And I don't think it's anything long-term with him. But, man, that comes to mind if he's already dinged up at this part of the year. It's early. It's a fresh season.
Georgia's got a
when we knew it was a long time out.
Coming. Yeah.
The thing that concerns me about Georgia is their offensive line and their defensive line. If they can mash on us and beat us up front, we will have all kinds of problems with them. If we can hold our own or better, it won't be particularly close. That's the thing that concerns me about them. But they are good up front, both sides of the ball.
Yeah. So Georgia's got Auburn next week, and then Kentucky, and then Florida, which is a pretty. I
would not want to play Auburn right now. I'm going to be honest, but then that's how I never want to play Auburn.
Yeah.
But that's kind of a tough stretch, right?
It is. That's easily,
yeah. I mean, arguably, Kentucky's the easiest one in that group, and that's not necessarily an easy game either. Like that's a tough 4-game stretch. I mean, I think they'll win them all, but I don't think you're going to really see any blowback wins like you saw this past week. Wow.
Yeah, no. Before yesterday, you probably could have sold me on Florida beating Georgia. Now, I don't know.
Same boat.
I just before yesterday, yeah. Kentucky, I think, is going to really screw with Georgia's headspace a lot. I think they're going to go in expecting 2020 Kentucky, and it's going to be like, the little old lady who warns you time and again not to pet her cute kitty cat, and the next thing you know, it's got all 4 claws in your chest and is swatting at your face. I think I think that is the mental image you need to have for Georgia, Kentucky. Georgia's got a hard row to hoe. And I guess the question we can close on today, and you don't have to throw an answer out there if you want, but after week 1 we were talking about, well, Alabama's number 1. Alabama's defense should be ranked number 2. Alabama's special teams number 3, and then Bryce Young should be ranked 4th. Kind of tongue in cheek because nobody was worthy of the rank. But if Georgia really runs into the fan, I mean, if they get smacked around over in the SEC least, I don't think they will. I think I agree with Jess. But it is a tough run. Whether the numbers 4 through 2, because it ain't Georgia if they get exposed. So just putting that out there. Just think about that, listeners, fellow staffers. If Georgia falls over themselves, what of the numbers 4 through 2 in the rankings. So
I mean, assuming Penn State continues.
the less I talk about that team, the happier I am.
I
But
know,
continue.
but, I'm just saying, assuming Penn State continues to win, and that happens, I don't see how they don't end up number 2.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
In there, I see Michigan coming up hard on the outside. Which one of those teams is better?
I still think Sparty beats Michigan this year.
You do?
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah.
I mean, the Big Ten could end up being a big, brawl. But I after seeing how Penn State played against Auburn, I don't think they're the top team in their division. I think Michigan, Ohio State, there's competition there for them. So I don't necessarily see them as a number 2. I don't think they're that good.
I'll say this, and then I'll give the final word of the day to Jess if she wants it. If we go back to when I was heaping praise on Cincy, if they do run the table, and this nightmare scenario that I'm describing happens, there's no way you don't give Cincy 3 or 4. Jess, close us out. What do you got?
Yeah, I think it's a fun week next week, right? This one was more about top matchups. This one is more determining what contenders are made of, right? Because you're going to have Oklahoma, Texas. I think that's going to be a closer matchup than it has any right to be. You have Georgia, Auburn. I think that's a good test. I don't really believe in Auburn this year necessarily, but I feel like the fact that it is a Jordan Hare and you're going to see some voodoo, and that game is going to be close, and you're going to spook the Rome into Athens, honestly. And then you have Penn State, Iowa. It is such a fun schedule this week, right? Because, I mean, what do you pick? Like, I think it's about contenders establishing themselves. Alabama, I think, has played their hardest game in the regular season so far this year. Again, I don't believe in Auburn. Even if you have to play the McJordan Hare, that is not a team that can sustain that kind of luck, even if it's Auburn. You're not going to make 7 defenders miss at Alabama. You're just not. Sorry, LSU, you're not. But no, this is a statement week for all the contenders because I think they face decent teams. And of course, you also have the sidebar of Arkansas and Ole Miss. What are these teams made of after absolutely wonderful starts to the season and the true contenders just shredding them like confetti? I can't wait to watch. It's another great week. I feel like games where we get like multiple, like 3, 4, 5 games that are at least supposed to be exciting, even if they don't necessarily work out that way. It's rare to get one of those weeks, but to get them consecutively is just a treat. Buckle up, my friends. Roll Tide. It's going to be fun.
All right, guys, Roll Tide. It was an absolute blast to hang with y'all this morning, and we're going to see y'all next week. Take care now.